Yeah, thank you very much. I have a little more precise title here. I'm going to talk about testing different reason and emotion-based prompts for donations and exploring its effects in beliefs, opinions, and attitudes. The exploring is really important because, yeah, I'm more exploring the data than presenting something that it is really certain, because it is still a work in progress, as you're going to see. So I have an extended version of this presentation in text, and I have shared in the document. So I encourage you to take a peek at it, because yeah, it's certainly going to be much more informative than the presentation here. So the motivation for our experiment was this growing body of evidence that emotion prompting conditions such as testimonial narratives, they usually lead to much more donations than what we could call reason prompting conditions, such as arguments or offering statistics, giving reasons, and etc. Here you see some examples of these. In some of them, the conditions, the differences are really strong. In other, usually they are not that strong, so we need a lot of participants to see really the effect. But you can see here in this one by Schwitzgebel that the argument and the control group are basically the same, so there's no effect in donation. The narrative fares better. In other ones, there is a difference between the control and the rational conditions, but once again, the narratives usually they fare much better. So we were willing to see that. But they we wanted to test more one experiment a lot of the conditions, and we also wanted to test usually these experiments, they deal either with the general approach to global poverty, or they choose a specific cause, or even different causes for each condition. So, and we wanted to test just one condition, and the more important is that we wanted to test a condition that was more neutral, so that a condition that wasn't that emotive related. So that's why we chosen cash transfers, and it has little to do with media stock, of course. So yeah, we developed this four conditions, using cash transfers as our example. And you have the text of these each of these conditions in the document as well. So there's the control group, the facts only, in which we state the results of some empirical research on the give directly. We use give directly as our example of cash transfers. A narrative in which we got first person testimonial narrative by a female recipient of Give Directly, a singer style argument. So there is this slide that I'm not going to dwell, but they did test a lot of arguments, and singer style was the one that was more effective among arguments. So we wanted to test for that as well. And the condition that we didn't get all the data yet, so I'm not going to present the results of the experiment, but the condition that I'm going to talk more about is this last one, because it's really interesting, and I've been exploring the data and finding some interesting patterns, but once again, just exploratory analysis. It is the virtual reason condition, in which we ask the participants to put themselves in the perspective of a reasonable person who makes regular cash transfers, and give 3 reasons for why this person should do that. So after these conditions, each person had just one condition. They were told that 5% of the participants would receive $5 additional, and then we asked them if they want to donate some amount of that money to Give Directly to make a direct cash transfer. We wanted, so this is the main The main variations, but we wanted also to explore other elements that should be playing in this role of leading to donations or not. So we decided to follow the literature on philosophy and decision making, and we devised these three elements that we wanted to test for, and we added a questionnaire that the participants would have to answer these questions that would give us information about these four elements after they already had or had not done the donation. So this is important. There is the belief. We defined it as a positive attitude towards a general proposition P. And here the question that we use is, do you think we should make regular donations? Opinion, we defined as a positive attitude towards a proposition about a state of affairs, so more specific. And here the question is do you think cash transfers are effective? Behavior, were defined as a recurrent action. So the question is, do you make regular donations? And action, which is our dependent variable, the specific action in the context of this experiment. So how much the participant donated. So to define the text of our condition on virtual reasoning, we relied on some studies on perspective taking, and there is some literature confirming that perspective taking has some good effects. We have divided this in a more emotional perspective taking, in which the participants, they are asked to take the perspective of the target, in this case of the people that are going to receive the help. And you can see here that it increases the perceived oneness, and it increases the helping as well. On the other hand, there's also some studies on perspective taking on that the people take the perspective on a more rational agent. In this case, there's this study by that the participants had to take the perspective of researchers, and it seems to have had significant change in their beliefs and how they deal with their beliefs. So these are the two conditions that we are trying to explore. We also, in choosing the vocabulary of our condition, we rely on these other pieces of evidence that people seem to be more cooperative when they think in a context of people that are reasonable, in opposition to people that are rational. When people are rational, and here there is also some evidence that priming people for being rational reduces their cooperation. So we wanted to avoid that, and we came up with this text that it is the text of the virtual reasoning condition. So using the words of reasonable, we ask people to put themselves in the perspective of someone who is a reasonable donator, maker, a person who makes monthly or regular cash transfers, and yeah, they should give 3 reasons for why they do so in this, of course, in this other perspective. So here we enter in the first explorations of the data. So we've tested with 350 participants recruited in the prolific, and this is some of the demographic information. Yeah, I'm not going. So as I said, I'm more exploring the data, and this I guess I'm going to present the 2 most interesting patterns that I have found. Here you have this scatter plot on the donated amount and the 2 different conditions. So you have narrative and virtual reasoning. And here you have the visualization of the questions that we are using to see people's beliefs and opinions. So in this case, you have, do you make regular donations? Yes or no? And should we make regular donations? So circle and triangle. And we are looking for the patterns, and it's really interesting to see here that, so these are the people who donated the whole amount. And it's really interesting that there's a lot of green circles here, and green circle, they reveal some incoherence, because you can see that it is that people who do not make regular donations, and yet they do believe we should make regular donations. So it's pretty interesting that the narrative, it's making them behave more rationally. If we, of course, we assume that being coherent with your own beliefs is a feature of rationality, which I guess it is. So yeah, this is really interesting, and it's a result that is already making us think about this distinction between rationality and emotion, and try to work these things better to yeah, further investigations. So, and yeah, of course, this result is in accordance with the power of narrative that we saw in the beginning. And once we have the data from the Singer style argument, I guess it's going to be really, really interesting to compare if the argument lead people to this more coherent behavior as the narrative does. So the second scatter plot that I want to explore together with you, it's basically the same structure, but here we have that question about the opinion. So we ask the participants, do you think that cash transfers are effective? And you have blue for yes and green for no. And once again, the pattern here that is really interesting at this time is on the virtual reasoning side. On the top, we have a lot of greens again, and it is important because greens are people who think that cash transfers are not effective. And yet, even if they believe that, they did donated a lot. And so you can see, we must remember that these questions were made after they have donated. So if they had changed their beliefs, they would respond yes, but they still responded no. So it's really, really curious, and we are really excited to explore that, because yeah, the perspective they took the perspective of a reasonable agent. It didn't make them change their beliefs, but it did change their actions. So this was really interesting. It leads to some sort of incoherence, I guess, but yeah, it once again it confirms the power of the weird powers of taking perspectives of the others, because it did have an influence on the immediate action, even if it did not have on their stated beliefs. And yeah, I guess here it's going to be really interesting to compare with the facts only condition to see if these defects are more effective towards leading to action in comparison to this perspective taking. So these are the two sorts of incoherence that we have identified, and we are excited to explore further. The next steps, I should mention that the immediate step I want to inquire to pursue a more qualitative analysis of the reasons that the participants gave from this perspective of a reasonable agent. And yes, I'm already looking at Jer's work, because I guess it will give me a good framework to categorize these beliefs, these reasons that they give. On the medium term, of course, we want to gather the data from all the other conditions to compare and to see how much donations they do lead for. And yeah, longer term, we are going to go deeper into this distinction between entrenched beliefs, moral beliefs, identity beliefs, and altruistic behaviors. And as I have already mentioned, it's going to be, we are already trying to rethink this difference between reason or rationality and emotion, because we might find a different approach to be more fitting for us to get a deeper or a more clear comprehension of the data. So yeah, thank you. And if you have, as you've seen, it's really a work in progress. So your feedback is really important. So please do send me any suggestion, critiques, and suggestions of literature as well. Thank you very much for your attention.